I behaved towards him like a child who thinks it may do as it pleases and looks on its father's treasures as its own. Having passed through Pisa and Genoa, we came back to France by one of the loveliest routes. At times we were close to the sea, and one day during a storm it seemed as though the waves would reach the train. Further on we travelled through plains covered with orange trees, olives, and feathery palms, while at night the numerous seaports twinkled with lights, and stars came out in the deep blue sky. But I watched the fairy picture fade away from my eyes without any regret. My heart was set elsewhere. My father proposed to take me to Jerusalem, but in spite of the natural wish I had to visit the places sanctified by Our Lord's footsteps, I was weary of earthly pilgrimages and only longed for the beauties of heaven. In order to win these beauties for souls I wanted to become a prisoner as quickly as possible. I felt that I must suffer and struggle still more before the gates of my blessed prison would open, yet my trust in God did not grow less, and I still hoped to enter at Christmas. We had hardly reached home when I paid a visit to the Carmel. You must remember well that interview, dear Mother. I left myself entirely in your hands, for I had exhausted all my resources. You told me to write to the Bishop and remind him of his promise. I obeyed at once, and as soon as my letter was posted I felt I should obtain the coveted permission without any delay. Alas, each day brought fresh disappointments. The beautiful feast of Christmas dawned, still Jesus slept. He left his little ball on the ground without even glancing that way. This was indeed a sore trial, but Our Lord, whose heart is always watching, taught me that He granted miracles to those whose faith is small as a grain of mustard seed, in the hope of strengthening this slender faith. Whilst for His intimate friends, for His Mother, He did not work miracles till He had proved their faith. Did He not permit Lazarus to die even though Mary and Martha had sent word that he was sick? And at the marriage feast of Cana, when Our Lady asked her Divine Son to aid the master of the house, did He not answer that His hour had not yet come? But after the trial, what a reward! Water is changed into wine, and Lazarus rises from the dead. In this way did my Beloved act with His little Thérèse. After He had tried her for a long time, He granted all her desires. For my New Year's gift of 1888, Jesus again gave me His cross. You told me, dear Mother, that you had had the Bishop's answer since December 28, the Feast of Holy Innocents, that he authorized my immediate entry into the Carmel, but that nevertheless you had decided not to open its doors till after Lent. I could not restrain my tears at the thought of such a long delay. This trial affected me in a special manner, for I felt my earthly ties were severed, and yet the ark in its turn refused to admit the poor little dove. How did these 3 months pass? They were fruitful in sufferings and still more so in other graces. At first, the thought came into my mind that I would not put any extra restraint on myself. I would lead a life somewhat less strictly ordered than was my custom, but Our Lord made me understand the benefit I might derive from this time He had granted me, and I then resolved to give myself up to a more serious and mortified life. When I say mortified, I do not mean that I imitated the penances of the Saints. Far from resembling those beautiful souls who have practiced all sorts of mortifications from their infancy, I made mine consist in simply checking my inclinations, keeping back an impatient answer, doing little services to those around me without setting store thereby, and 100 other things of the kind. By practicing these trifles I prepared myself to become the spouse of Jesus, and I can never tell you, Mother, how much the added delay helped me to grow in abandonment, in humility, and in other virtues. End of chapter 6.